Today I'm going to show you how to make homemade pie crust. So I am using the stainless steel bowl. I've got my flour in here, and whenever I'm baking, if I can, I like to weigh my ingredients versus using a measuring cup, especially with things that are tricky like pie crust. If you choose to use a measuring cup, spoon your flour into your cup and level it off, and you'll get the right amount. So you want to start with cold ingredients. So if you like, even stick your bowl of flour in the freezer for an hour or so before you're ready to go, and that will be cold as well. I'm going to add some salt to the flour mixture, and I'm going to also add some shortening. Now you can use Crisco, or I like to use this one. It's organic shortening. Use whatever you prefer. Some people like to use lard. I've never done that with my pie crust, so you can decide what your preferences are. So once you add your shortening, and I'm gonna do a blend of shortening and butter today, then you will mix it all up. So I'm gonna use my mix and chop to add my shortening in there. And you wanna just chop it up until it's like pea-sized. So green peas, and you'll see little balls of dough, or little balls of the shortening. So it looks like that, and that's all you have to do. Now here's the trick with butter. Butter needs to be super cold, and you want to touch it as little as possible so that it doesn't melt, okay? So I like to use butter that's been in the fridge, and I like to use my grater to get it just perfect. So you want to handle this as little as you can. And I've got my little food holder here. This is the coarse grater. Let's see here. There we go. And stick it in there. Just get it started. I might have to hold it to get it started. You can cut it if you want to. And I'll switch. You can see the little curls. It almost looks like cheese. And this makes it easier to blend in with the flour. So if you have a pastry blender, you can do it that way too. Okay, so we want to work quickly. We're going to dump this right into the flour mixture. Try not to touch it with your hands until you have to. Okay, so we'll just mix this all up, and then we're gonna add water. Now, you wanna use ice water, so here's what I like to do. Okay, it's all combined, perfect. I like to have a larger container of ice water, and then my measuring cup for what I'm going to need. So there's actually ice cubes in here. I need half a cup, so I'm just gonna hold back my ice cube. We'll start with half a cup. And then you kind of have to go by the feel of it to know if you need more or not. Okay, so just go ahead and kind of pour it all over the top. And you're just gonna mix it up now until it comes together slightly. So I will finish this off with my hands at the end, but I don't wanna do it until I have to, so that the butter and the shortening don't start to melt. Okay, using the back of your scraper, you'll be able to see everything coming together. And with pastry dough, kind of like biscuit dough, you don't want to overwork it. So there's a little bit of an art to this, but it does come together really well. Okay, now I'm ready to really make sure that it's nice and combined. I'm going to put it right onto my pastry mat. And you'll just knead it a little bit until it starts to come together. And if you need more flour, you can certainly do that. Okay, so as you start to form it into a ball, you'll see that the little flour bits will start to get incorporated. I can tell I don't need any more flour in this. It is definitely, it's probably even a little bit on the dry side. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna add just a little bit of water, about a teaspoon, kind of put it on there. You don't want it to be tacky, but you don't want it to be crumbly either. So that's the art part of this. All right. So I'm just gonna divide this in half. You can just break it in half with your hands. Totally okay. And then form it into a disc. And we're gonna refrigerate this for about an hour until the dough gets nice and cold, and any butter that's started to soften will be, it'll be formed nice and firm again. Okay, that looks good. So I'm gonna grab my Ziploc bag. I like to actually use a bit of plastic wrap. Try to do this without leaving a mess everywhere. And this is so that it doesn't dry out at all. You can actually prepare your discs of dough even a few weeks ahead and freeze it to save time on the day that you want to make a pie. Okay, so once I've got it wrapped, I'm just gonna pop it into a Ziploc, and because I'm gonna bake this tomorrow, I actually am just gonna pop it in the fridge. I'm not gonna freeze it. So we're gonna do that, and then I'll show you how to roll it out next. The dough chilled overnight. I am ready to roll everything out. So this is really hard because of the chilling, and that's okay. We want the fat of the butter to help hold the shape. So on my baking mat, pastry mat, I'm gonna dust a little bit of flour, and don't be afraid to use a bunch of flour with this because it's going to help keep everything from sticking so that it's easy to transport to the pie plate. So here we go. We'll put a little flour on there. Now, here's the thing you want to be careful of when you're rolling pizza dough or pie dough. You want to roll from the inside out, and as opposed to all the way across, okay? So just kind of lean into it, use your upper body strength, and then keep turning it. And you'll notice as you're working the dough, it will start to soften. So we want to get this to a 12-inch diameter. Just keep turning your rolling pin, and you'll see that it'll stay circular. And then if you get these edges that are kind of starting to look like they're going to come apart, you can just kind of push it in a little bit to give it the shape that you want. That way it keeps growing in the direction that you want. We want this to be quite thin to give a nice pastry crust. Okay, now right here, there's a little bit of a crack. I'm just gonna push it together. And there we go. We've got a nice round shape. Now we're gonna turn these apples into a gorgeous pie. If you love homemade pies, I'm gonna show you some tricks today that are gonna help make that easier. So I've got a homemade dough already rolled out. You can use the box kind if you're in a pinch. And here's my trick for getting it to your pie crust. Taking your pastry mat, just gently fold it over, and if you've been using enough flour while rolling it out, it should cooperate with you. I like to fold it into quarters, and then I'm going to take my stoneware pie plate and transfer it right into the pie plate. So take it very carefully, and I think confidence when you're pie baking is the key, right? So forgive yourself if you have a crust that rips. It'll be okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab my baker's roller. I wanna make this just a little bit wider. This is my trick. If ever you get to the point where, like right here, I wanna have a bit more of an overhang. So I used the tapered roller to get it all rolled out, but sometimes if I want it to be just a little bit bigger, and I haven't figured that out until after the crust has gone inside, I am just gonna use the rounded part here to just make it a little bit bigger. Okay, so I've got a homemade pie filling today, apple pie filling. It's from the website Sally's Baking Addiction, which I love. She's a great teacher, read her comments prior to recipes. You will learn so much from her. So this was, I think, 8 apples, assorted apples, Granny's, Pizzazz, Fuji, Gala, all kinds. And she recommends you actually cook your apples until they're a little bit soft. So this has your typical apple pie ingredients. If you use canned filling, same concept, okay? You're just gonna dump it all in. This had some lemon juice, Karinji cinnamon, allspice, nutmeg, and some flour. Excuse me. And I cooked it for about 5 minutes, just until it started to soften. Now, when you're making apple pies, it's nice to have some crown on top with all of your filling because it's gonna cook down. So if your filling is low in your pie crust, it's gonna sink a little bit. Let me go ahead and rinse off. I'm gonna show you how to prepare a lattice crust. So I had the second crust already rolled out, and I pulled this out of the refrigerator. You're gonna cut your second crust into 1-inch strips, just like this, okay? So you're gonna start from the center, and you'll move it all the way out. So we're gonna go just like this, okay? I think these lattice pie crusts are so magical, and they look like they're really hard to do, and they're really not. So just lay them all out. I'll save the long one for the other way. There we go, since we've got shorter sides here. Okay, now what you're gonna do is you're gonna alternate your strips, roll them forward. So I've gone every other one now, and I'm gonna go ahead and whoop. Let's see, I'll start with my shorter one, just like that. And then I'll roll this down, and then we'll go opposite. So we'll take the other ones, roll them forward. This could be so fun to do with younger cooks in your family. They would get such a kick out of this. It's rewarding, you know, it's just pretty. I usually just do the plain old second crust on top, and I don't bother with this, but I thought I'm gonna show you all how to do it because it's really not hard and it's just stunning. Okay, so we've got one more, and then you're gonna have a little bit of dough left over, and you can just turn that into scraps. That's totally fine. Let's see here, I missed one. There we go. And we'll go like this. Okay, so now you want to crimp. Some people like to roll inward, and some like to go outward. So I'm gonna go inward for this one, okay? So you're just gonna take those edges and bring it forward, and you kind of want to pinch it a little bit. So you might have to get a little bit of flour on your fingers. So I'm curious what your favorite pie flavors are. Are you team fruit pies, or do you like the, you know, chocolate, chiffon, those French silk, pumpkin, blueberry, cherry? There's so many great ones. I know pie for me is fun to make, and it's really fun to eat, right? So good. Okay, so once you've got it rolled all the way around, you're just gonna use your knuckles, just like this, okay? So you're just gonna press that dough in between your knuckles, and it will flute your edges, which will provide a little bit of seal. Now, if you are not doing a lattice and you're just doing that second crust on top, you do need to vent your crust by cutting little slits in it. So there's actually a purpose for that. It's not just for decoration, it's to keep your pie filling from exploding everywhere. So there we go. Okay, so there's the start. Now, we're gonna brush it with an egg wash, and this is going to help it turn a beautiful golden color, and it's going to be the glue for that little bit of sugar that I'm going to brush on there. So all this is a beaten egg with a tablespoon of milk, and we'll go ahead and put this on here. When you're baking pie dough, first of all, if you're not an experienced pie baker, you don't have to treat your pans. You don't need to grease and flour them or anything like that. There's plenty of fat in your pie crust to do the greasing for you, so you don't have to do that separately. Okay, I think I got everything covered. And now we've got some coarse sugar. So this is just that sugar in the raw. You can buy it in a box. And I like this one because it's really coarse and it shows up. And so it gives that nice little sparkle on your crust to give that pretty texture. And that's it. Okay, so if you have a stoneware pie pan like this one, you're gonna bake bottom rack of your oven. If you don't, the top will brown, you'll think it's done, you'll go to pull it out and your pie crust is doughy on the bottom. The solution, put your pies and pretty much everything you bake on your stoneware in the bottom of your oven. And I'm talking like maybe this far from the bottom, regardless if it's an electric or gas oven, you'll have your best luck there. And then you want to, what I do with my pie crust shield here, we actually don't carry these anymore, but you'll want to cover your edges to keep them from browning, because this takes a long time to bake. I'm gonna bake it at 400 degrees for 25 minutes, and then I'm gonna lower it to 375 for another maybe 35 minutes. And so you'll want to cover the edges so your edges don't brown before everything is done. And then you'll just remove this maybe the last 10 or 15 minutes of bake time. The other thing you'll want to do is set your pan on a cookie sheet, a rimmed pan. A sheet pan will work just fine. It's not unusual for your fruit pies to bubble over slightly, so unless you're a big fan of cleaning your oven, save that step and just set it on a sheet pan and you'll have your best results. I don't have to clean my oven any more than I want to, but I have to, so I'm gonna do that. And that's it. When it comes out, I will post a picture of it, but I'm not gonna be digging into this for several hours. Your pies need to sit for at least, I say 5 hours or even overnight before you cut into them, because those sugars need to solidify, otherwise you're gonna have a really soupy pie. So be patient. If you're baking pies before a holiday or a gathering, you can do them the day before, and that way there's no question that they're ready when it's time. Okay, I hope you'll give this lattice a try, and I would love to see your results after you've tried making one, whether you make the pie crust yourself or if you're starting with some help from a prepared pie crust. Thanks for watching.